we're leaving, and we're both just like kind of hanging over a railing, like near the top of the steps. And she sees a 97 carved out, like on the wood railing. And her eyes go down a little and she sees, and 97 was her birth year. And then she sees Jamie, just her name written down. And
Amazing.
she looks at me and asks, like, do you see what I see? And I had seen the same thing. And so she just was like, God, I love you so much, Jamie. And kid you not, at that moment, a little girl, way down, like probably in the water still at Hanging Rock, shouts out, I love you too!
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah.
Welcome to the Light the Day podcast, where we explore spiritually transformative experiences. Today, my guest is Jessi Bass. Hi, Jessi.
Hi, Julie.
I am so excited to have you on. We know each other peripherally,
Mhm.
and I'm really excited to hear more details of your story. I just know little itsy bitsy bits of it, and I'm super excited to hear your story. But before we get started on your story, share a little bit about you right now, like what you do, maybe where you live, whatever feels correct for you.
Yeah, so I live in North Carolina. I am a mind-body healing practitioner, living a totally different life than I was a decade ago, than I was 3 years ago. Like it's just constant evolution, it feels like. I am also a photographer and a mama of two boys, married a decade as well to my husband, Steven. And yeah, I have a lot that's happened in my life through grief and through these spiritually transformative experiences that I believe are, not only here for me as a gift to transform my life, but to touch other people, to do to do to others what has been done to me. I
Yeah.
always say, what's available to one person is available to all. So,
I believe that too. And, just hearing a little bit of your story, which we're going to share with everyone, just reminded me a lot of of similar experiences that I've had. And I think it's so helpful, especially for people who are going through really challenging things and then to see where that can lead. So let's start kind of wherever feels comfortable for you. I know you mentioned like your father dying, your dad dying, and how that kind of started the process of cracking you open and where you went from there.
yeah, I was telling Julie that um, after my sister died, it felt like the universe cracked my head open and light and truth and love poured in. But I'll start way back when I was 16 and I remember journaling. Um, I was prayer journaling and saying to God something to the effect of, please like bless me with cancer or something someday because I have such faith in me that I want people to have what I have. And maybe if I were to go through something really hard and really dark and really challenging and something extreme to where people on the outside could really recognize, but then still see my faith, then they'd pay attention. Um,
Interesting. Wow.
yeah,
Wow. And you were 16?
I was 16.
Does it feel a little bit like foreshadowing for what did actually happen then?
Yes, I'm like, okay, so I wasn't given cancer, but I was given experiences that um, could have broken me and that did break me in a lot of ways and um, felt even worse. I obviously haven't experienced cancer, so I can't say what that feels like, but the intention was to experience something so profoundly devastating in my life that it would provide such a contrast for people to pay attention to and, um, you know, maybe be inspired in their own faith by to see that I am still as connected as I am. And I had no idea. I had no idea, like that it was going to take me through this path of extreme, extreme devastation, just in a myriad of other ways over many, many, many years. And there would be a lot of breaking down and a lot of faith being lost, faith being changed before I really got to that place of a feeling, almost full circle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had an experience, I guess, that I asked for in some ways, but it was even worse. And because it was even worse, my faith or my rising is even greater. So,
Mm. So what happened after that?
well, my dad actually did have cancer at that time when I was 16. He was given 6 months to live when I think I was around 13. I'm not great with ages, but um, so he was sick for a long time, but he lived for 10 years instead of 6 months. And I always attribute to that to just the love that he had for my sister. And I mean, a deep, strong, like willful love that kept him wanting to be on this earth and just kept him alive for a long time. Um, but when he did die, it was sudden. It was completely unexpected. I had just turned 21, and I remember talking to him on the phone about, I'll be there soon. He lived in New Jersey, and I can't wait to like have fun and go get a drink together. We're going to celebrate. And he couldn't wait. And we were talking about all the things that we would do to celebrate my birthday. And, you know, um, and then next thing you know, I was getting a phone call that he was in the hospital and is now on hospice, and I need to come to Jersey right away.
Wow.
So Jamie and I hopped on a plane and we got to New Jersey, and there was a 2 week period of, at least that I remember, things are definitely fuzzy, but where he was dying and hospice was there. And I never thought that I really would see the day. Like I just thought he was like, Superman, and he could fix anything and do anything and outlive anything, and that he'd be alive for forever. So it was completely shocking and completely devastating and a very traumatic loss because he was forgetting who my sister and I were, and we were everything to him. So it was really traumatizing for Jamie and I.
I'm sure.
Um, and yeah, that was the beginning of like the big grief. And it was definitely, like I was just telling you before this, like the worst experience that I thought could ever happen to me. I thought that was it. I thought that, okay, enough hard things have happened in life, and this was the icing on the cake. This must be it for me. Like, surely, a God that is alive and sees me and loves me would never let anything worse than this happen to me. And Jamie and I would say to each other, like, losing daddy, like, okay, we can survive. Like, we can survive this, but we could not lose each other. Like, we would say, like, I cannot lose you. Like, I cannot lose you. And then I did.
Wow. Wow. And how many years later was that?
I think it was 3 or 4 years later.
Mm. And walk us through what happened there.
Yeah, it was another sudden, shocking, traumatizing passing. The and I remember it was a few years later because the cops had showed up at our doorstep, and they knocked on our door. There was two of them there, and they pulled out, I think, Jamie's license and asked, do you know Jamelin Zuner? They said, and I remember I was like instantly mad because first of all, something felt uncomfortable, and I was like, this doesn't feel like good news. And they said her name wrong, and I was like, it's Jamelin, and that was not like me. And they just said point blank, I'm so sorry. She just died in a car accident.
Were they
And
at your door?
they were at my door.
Wow.
Yeah, they
Okay.
had tried to get to my mom. Um, they had been calling her. She was working from home that day,
Mm-hmm.
and she didn't get the calls, or they had left a message too, and she just didn't hear it. And she remembers hearing the sirens because we lived 5 minutes from each other. So she
Mm.
remembers hearing the sirens, going to my house and probably praying a prayer, which she would do if she heard those, and having no idea, what that was for. So they showed up at my house because I was the next person that they, could contact. Um, so I just remember finding a wall in the room that I was in to lay my body against, and I just slid down screaming. I just remember screaming, and Stephen shaking his head, holding our 1 year old and looking at the cops and saying, "No, but she just lost her dad." Like pleading with them, like this can't, like you don't understand, like it's been enough already, like please. And they just said, "I'm so sorry." And we had to
Wow.
make the phone call to my mom. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't imagine, first of all, you learning that your sister has passed in that way. And also then having the burden of having to tell your mom.
yeah.
Yeah. What was that like?
I didn't have to make the phone call. My husband did. But it was heavy because I was aware of, I mean, just how much my life just changed in that moment, and that like my mom was still unaware and
Mm,
unscathed, and in innocence, and just knowing that that phone call was about to be delivered to her. And he didn't tell her over the phone. He just said, "Come to our house." And she knew. She knew.
mm, mm.
And so he told her when she got there. And I'm glad that we were all able to be together. But yeah, it was heavy.
Yeah. And your sister was younger than you,
She was
correct?
5 years younger, but she was in a lot of ways like my bigger sister. She was stronger than me and tougher than me and harder than me and more attitude than me and stood up for me. And
Yeah. 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 And if I recall, she was kind of at the beginning of her adult life. Like she was just at that point of moving from kind of teenage to more adult.
yeah,
And
she was about teen,
that's,
and she was struggling a lot where she was at the time, and um,
did you
was
say she
running.
was 19?
She was 19,
19.
yes. Yeah. And yeah, she lived actually right down the road from me. So we were all within a few minutes from each other. My Grammy lived right across the street from I did. So it was a very interesting period of time where we all were just like right near each other. Um, and she was on her way home, and she wasn't wearing her seatbelt. I didn't know any of this at the time. That information comes later. Um,
Mhm.
but I'll say the first experience I had, because during that time I just went into complete shock and denial, and started to believe, oh, maybe they were wrong, they have the wrong person. And I just couldn't accept that that could possibly be true, because to accept that that just happened felt like it meant so much about life and meant so much about God that I wasn't prepared for. In my mind, it equated to like, if something of this nature could happen, then there must not be a loving God. If there is, I must not really be supported or seen or known, because if there were, nothing like this could ever possibly happen. Like that
Mhm.
God, that being, angels would know that I could not possibly survive the loss of my sister. And so it meant too much, you know? It was
Yeah.
riding on too much to accept that that was really true. And it took a while to sink in, but there was a moment within like a couple days of her passing that my son was napping, and he hadn't gone to sleep yet, and I could hear him in his crib. He was standing up and he was laughing. And I was like, what is he doing? And he was just giggling. And then he'd stop and then he'd giggle. And so I went to his room and I peeked in, and he was standing in his crib holding his hand up and just laughing. And immediately I just knew that my sister was there and that he could see her glasses and that he was trying to grab them because that's what he did with her here was he would reach out and try to take her glasses and she'd say, Eli, and he'd just giggle and I just knew that that's what was happening.
Wow, I have goosebumps just hearing that. What did that feel like?
Mm. Well, I was hungry um for to hear from her, you know? I was I felt like I had to. Like there was no possible way that if, all of this was true, and again, like if there was a God, if there was anybody on the other side that like had the capacity to love deeply and know humans deeply, then I would have to hear from her because they would know that like that would be the only way I continue on. Either she just like it was all a facade and she didn't die, or I got some answers, you know? So that felt like a pinprick of hope, but I was still asking like fervently in that several days, weeks span. I was journaling every day, like, I need to see you, I need to hear from you. I believe that you can come through somehow, and I need to hear from you if I'm going to keep living.
Yeah, yeah. So what was the next couple of years like? How did things develop? Where did it go from there?
Oh my goodness, it's gone so many ways because that wasn't even the extent of the deaths that I had experienced. But specifically in that 30-day window, I I was pretty like manic. I had just come out of my 13-month struggle with postpartum depression. I had been recently diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder before Jamie passed, like maybe within weeks. I had, I don't know, 5 or 6 different psychiatric diagnoses as well. I was on 5 different psychiatric medications. I know I had gotten on more after she died because I pretty much went to my psychiatrist begging for like a bigger diagnosis so that I could have more medication to help me because I didn't feel like I was handling life well. Um, and I felt like something was deeply, deeply wrong with me. I since have like an entirely different paradigm on mental illness and mental health, and I'm on absolutely no medication, and I don't even identify with labels that I've had since I was actually 5 years old or younger. So that's all part of just this spiritual awakening, really, and what I've been led to. But it was really in that 30-day span that I was at my lowest low up until that point in my life. When I was on all that medication, I had a flask of alcohol that I was drinking from throughout the day just to stay like okay enough. I still had my 1-year-old son and my mom. I felt like I now my dad's dead, my sister's dead, and part of me felt like my mom was dead too. Because I saw the light in her eyes go out, and I didn't know if I'd ever get her back because I didn't even know if I'd ever get me back. I remember saying to my husband many times, I don't know if I'm going to be okay. I don't know if I'm going to get through this. Like, I really don't know. And that scared me because I always knew like everything was going to be okay and we were going to make it through and we were going to use this experience to help somebody else. And that was like, it had gone too far, like too far now. So I just remember I'm journaling every day, asking to hear from her. Um, and my mom ends up having an experience 2 weeks later, and we're driving to Hanging Rock State Park. And this was the first time that she was like really out of the house, driving around since the accident. She was really confined to like a seat on the couch in like just, her darkness and her pain. Um, and we were out, and she just said a silent prayer in her mind to receive a sign from Jamie and to see a rainbow. And she just refreshed my memory with this story the other day. And she said we turned the car, and immediately she saw a rainbow, like immediately. Blue skies, big puffy white clouds, and there's a rainbow right there in the sky. And she freaked out I mean, she was like, "Oh my gosh." And my stepdad like pulled the car over because he's like, "What? What is it?" And she just couldn't even like she couldn't believe what she had just seen. And I did not see it, and none of us saw it. I don't think my stepdad saw it. I did not. And so she told me later that she prayed that I would see a rainbow too. So we get to Hanging Rock, and I ended up seeing a rainbow at Hanging Rock in a very like mystical, strange way. It wasn't in the sky. It was like in the water or in some way that was like very obvious and like, oh my goodness. And,
That's amazing.
yeah. And I didn't know she had prayed that. And so I saw that and we're leaving. And um, we're both just like kind of hanging over a railing, like near the top of the steps. And she sees a 97 carved out, like on the wood railing. And she just, her eyes go down a little and she sees, and 97 was her birth year. And then she sees Jamie, just her name written down.
Amazing.
And she looks at me and asks, like, do you see what I see? And I had seen the same thing. And so she just was like, God, I love you so much, Jamie. And kid you not, at that moment, a little girl way down, like probably in the water still at Hanging Rock, shouts out, I love you too.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah.
Your sister, it's interesting. You described her as being so bold and so,
Mm.
um, and that's the way she's showing up.
Yeah,
She's showing up the same way. She's showing up in spirit the same way she showed up in life. Bold.
yes,
I
yes.
love that.
And that was just the beginning. I had no idea what else would be in store, but um, that that did something for me, because up until then I was feeling nothing but pain and misery and fear, like intense, intense fear every day, every moment of the day. Um, and I'm still journaling, you know, please speak to me. I had this little pink journal that she had given me on my 16th or 17th birthday. She filled the first like 10 pages with pictures of me growing up and writing my name and little things on different pages. And then she wrote me a letter. And then I think one of the last sentences was that she wrote was like, I love you forever, past death, or something like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this means something so different now than it did. Like, I was like, what inspired her to write that when she was 12 or 13 years old?
Yeah, that,
Yeah,
and that's, it's so interesting because the soul knows.
yeah,
The soul knows. Yeah.
yeah. I've listened to more of your, interviews recently, and I've heard from others, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, whew, not a lot really blows my mind anymore, but like it's just so expanding and comforting. And so I'm writing in that journal, to her every single day and praying to her throughout the day. And I'm just like, Jamie, you of all people would speak to me. Like you would find a way, like you would move mountains to speak to me. If you're okay and like you're in spirit and there's a way to contact me, then I just know that you will because you're my sister and I can't survive without you. Um, so we're about 30 days in, and I get a phone call from my friend, and she's in Florida at the time. We're living in North Carolina, and she's like, "Hey, well, I have something to share with you, but I don't know like how you're gonna feel about it. I don't know if like this is gonna be really weird and uncomfortable for you, and like I don't want to like offend you or whatever, Like she was cautious about, sharing it. And so I'm like, like whatever. What do you got? Like, let me hear it. And she said that she had gone to see a psychic medium to have like an intuitive session or something for herself. And she had known that, she shared with the medium that my sister had passed. And right when she said that, the medium was like, her sister's right here. And my friend was like, oh, and she could hear from her. And so she ended up having the whole session about or most of the session about my sister so that like she could give that to me and hear what it is that she had to say. And one of the things that she kept saying was sisters necklaces, like that's how she kind of introduced herself, which I didn't understand at the time, but I was like, okay. Um, so she had basically been answering my questions that I had been journaling to her about. And I mean, everything that she said throughout it, I was like, this is classically my sister. Like when you know someone, you just know someone. It wasn't like, oh, I really miss you and I see that you're suffering and it's okay to let go. It was like very specific to me. She said that she was trying to connect with me and that she couldn't because of the plane that she was on. So like we couldn't necessarily feel or hear each other. But the medium was able to be open to that. And at that 30-day mark, she had explained that, your soul is usually like 70% crossed over and maybe like 30% still here on Earth, but that Jamie's was like reverse. She was 70% still here and like 30% crossed over. Um, she had explained that she was very scared that we were mad at her, which is something that she would say, like, oh, are they mad at me?
Mm,
Um, because of the way that she died, we thought that she was actually doing drugs, or like on Xanax or something, and that had accounted for her. Like we thought, okay, she must have been taking pills and speeding because she was just in that phase of her life. Like I said,
mhm,
she was struggling. Um, and she wanted to right what we had, what we had wrong. My mom and I did one day, we were like very mad and like, how could you do this, Jamie? How could you be so irresponsible? How could you leave us like this? And she felt that, she heard that, and she told us
mhm,
she wasn't wearing her seatbelt, and an animal ran out in the road, and which is very common where we live, very common. We're like out in a rural area, and with her not wearing her seatbelt, she said she just swerved and she lost control of the car and she went into the field, and it was immediate. And so that's not something, that the police had ever meant. There's no way that they could have known that that's why she swerved into the field, but it makes so much sense.
mhm,
So she wanted us to know that, so that we weren't carrying the weight of believing something different, sharing that, and having her perceive that way and holding that in our hearts and being like bitter and angry, towards her. So she wanted to share that with us. She had also commented about my grieving and seeing the way that Stephen, my husband, was supporting me in my grief, and that she felt jealous that he was able to comfort me when she wanted to be there to comfort me, but it was because of her that I was even in as much pain that I was in. And because I was specifically asking her about my husband a lot too, because they butted heads a lot. Like they loved each other, but they also just like, would buck up
mhm,
against each other. So I talked a lot about like their relationship, and that's when she was like, she had said that she was so proud of Stephen, the way that he was comforting me, and that's when she had shared that she was also jealous. Um, and I know that there was more in all of that she shared, but then the other thing was the sister's necklace, and it hit me later on. I don't know why it didn't hit me at the time, but she bought us sisters necklaces. They were these circle necklaces that I wore for a very long time after she died, but I'm always just like, I don't want it to break, so like I keep it in a safe space. Um, and she bought each of us one, and it said like sisters are forever or something on it. And then she lost hers. And she's at my house one day and she's getting ready for an interview, a job interview that I had gotten her set up with. And I was doing her hair and I was helping her get ready and I was picking out jewelry. And I was like, oh, something about your sister's necklace. And she told me she lost. Oh my gosh, Jamie. So I put my sister's necklace on her. And it was just a couple days later that she had the accident. And so, and I was like, I didn't know if she had taken it off that night when she got home and she put it away. And so I had been asking her in my journal, were you wearing the sister's necklace? Like, did you still have it on? Did you have our sister's necklace on? And I just forgot that ask that. And I could not look at anything. Like my stepdad had her clothes and like everything that they were able to extract from the vehicle, which was not everything. But they had what they could get. And one of that was, her pieces of jewelry that she was wearing. And I did not know what she was wearing. I didn't ask, I didn't look, nothing. So when I got off the phone that day, I walked outside and called my stepdad, and I'm like, I'm ready to know what Jamie was wearing that day. And so he had the stuff, I think, on him actually in his vehicle. And he went through piece by piece and told me what was there. And he told me there's a little necklace here with a circular ring, and it was our sister's necklace. So she was confirming to me that, yes, she was wearing our necklace, and I had gotten it back.
That's incredible. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know there were, months after that where things were still really hard and you were worried about your mom. And that's how we met originally a few years ago. Um, and I didn't confirm this with you, but I seem to remember, and let me know what you remember, but I seem to remember that when I got connected with your mom, she said that you had found me Googling,
Yeah.
and which I thought at the time, I thought, well, that's really unusual because I didn't really have a large internet presence at the time, and I thought, I can't imagine Google finding me.
Yeah.
And when she told me that, because people would find me in really unusual ways, I thought that is not Google, that is spirit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, you're so right because like I said, I felt like at that moment I just lost my whole like core family. Um,
For sure.
and I was very scared that she was never going to be okay again. Like I didn't know how I was going to be okay again, and she was my sister, and that's not to diminish our closeness, but it's not your child. And then again, though, we were like soul connected.
Yeah.
Um,
That
and so I was scared for her, and I had my own son, and so I was just like, man, if I ever lose my own child, of course, new fear unlocked, right? Like it was a twofold. It's like I want my mom to be okay because I care about my mom and I love my mom and I want my mom back and I want her okay for her own self. And I also want to know that like if something ever happened to my kids, like I could be okay too. So I was relentlessly searching for stories about mothers who had lost their children, not people who had lost somebody that they loved, mothers who lost their children, and specifically like a child above, the age of 3 or 4, not like a miscarriage, but like even at 2 years old, like just Jamie was 19 years of being somebody's mother. That just hits you differently than 3 years. I have a 3-year-old, so I'm like, I don't know that it's really any harder at 19 because I can't even still imagine. But
I'm sure.
um, so I was buying books. I was reading these books to see their stories and to really make sure like that these moms actually found healing before I would recommend them to my mom. And, so I'd pre-read things and then I'd be like, okay, this is a good one. And I'd give her a book and, I'd look up stories online and I'd send them to her if I felt like would inspire hope and not, fear or take her further down. And she needed help, like she needed a hand to hold. And so that's around the time when I found you. And when I opened your website and I read about what you do and I saw, some of the podcast episodes that you have done with a lot of mothers, I'm like, this this is her. This is who I've been looking for like this whole time. And um, I showed her your website and there was this initial like, oh my gosh, like because too, there's nothing like speaking with another mother that has lost her children. She had gone to therapists, she had gone to trauma therapists, and people who knew what they were doing, and it didn't touch her pain in the way that working with you did because you had gone through that experience and you had lost two children. So it's like, oh my gosh, like it's somebody that can hold the space, the pain, like that knows, that really knows, not just intellectually, but viscerally. And so it was, her connecting with you that was absolutely transformative for her and for me because I felt like I was getting my mom back and it put me at such peace and ease. And yeah, that was a really, really spirit-led moment.
Well, I love your mom so much, and I love you so much. I haven't had as much contact with you, but I have had little bits and pieces of contact with you through your mom. And
Mhm.
so it's really nice to hear your story and hear your perspective on things. So you talk about this like change in the way that you see the world and the way that um, the spirit has connected with you and the changes in your faith journey and so forth. Take us there for a moment and share kind of what precipitated that type of healing or that type of change.
Yeah, well, I grew up Catholic, for my first, I don't know, few years. And eventually that transitioned into like a non-denominational Christianity. So those are the beliefs that I had growing up. Um, and I believed like the traditional things that are taught in churches that, there's a heaven and there's a hell. And um, I always had an affinity for heaven and for spirituality. Um, when I was like deeply within Christianity, I was constantly like absorbing near-death experiences, all from a very Christian perspective, but I was reading books and I was watching videos online, like anything I could get my hands on. This was prior to my dad dying, prior to Jamie dying, prior to the subsequent deaths. Because yeah, I had issues like just internally, like stemming from 5 years old, as I know when my OCD started, and I had severe night terrors too when I was little, up until I was about 16. Um, so there were times, where my depression was so bad that I felt like I was being possessed, and I was hugely afraid, and I was within that Christian paradigm, and so I would have people pray for me or connect with people from the church, and I lived that for many, many years until I was in college, and the idea of hell was so strong in my system, like so fearfully strong and alive in my system when as I'm branching out and meeting more people and I have a roommate who's Jewish and like we're becoming good friends and I just like adore her and my view of the world is broadening and I'm just like, how could there be a place of eternal punishment? It didn't make sense to me. More people than not, having lived in this world, like will end up, suffering eternally. And that's just like an idea that's really unsettling to have in the back of your mind all the time. That's a big, big deal.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and it's pretty glossed over, although, the mission is to like be going out and saving people. And so I was very deeply like in the church and in college having, Bible studies in my room and the campus missionaries like, leading and assisting the youth pastor at a local church. So I was very much within the paradigm of fear-based religion, although, there was a lot of love in there as well, but there was also a lot of fear. And in the paradigm of mental health and mental illness and stuff at that time, I had believed like it was a chemical imbalance in your brain because that's what I was taught. So I had started medication when I was 16. And I lived in a lot of fear, a lot of unease, disquiet, discomfort, like disturb kind of, feeling for a very long time. And, that's why I talk about really like these deaths that I've experienced were my greatest catalyst to life. I mean, a transformation of life on all levels. This was not just about having connected with Jamie and having further connected with her over the years, like, was not just opening my eyes to there being like goodness and okay, I can relax, like, she's safe, she's on the other side. It also broke me down before it broke me open. It dismantled, it like softened me enough and it gave me permission to allow things within my spirit to like dismantle because I felt like that boldness, right, that she had of like, okay, God, if you're going to take away my dad and you're going to take away my sister after all of the hard things I've already experienced, then like I have a right to question you and what I believe. And I had done that, previously, and I'd gotten chastised for asking questions. But it was at this time
chastised by
by
who
people in
chast
the church.
okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So at the time, like my youth leader, I went to him with these questions, and he was basically like, who are you to ask God these questions? Like, who do you think you are? If God were to create 10 people and send nine of them to hell, who are you to say that that's right or wrong? It's God can do what God wants to do. And I'm like,
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
That just kind of deepens the fear
Yeah.
aspect. And
So
yet
much.
we see throughout scripture, seek and find. Yeah.
Yes. And
So,
we also see, like the heart is deceitful above all, right? And so, um, and that's what I started doing was following my heart. And so you have to like just imagine the dissonance and the disconnect and just the fear there because I'm being taught like this is wrong and this is like walking away or being, blinded or all kinds of things, right? And here I am, like feeling in my heart a stirring towards something better, something truer than what I had been taught growing up. And I'm following those footsteps and I feel like I have permission on a deeper level than I'd ever had before because I did follow that voice, but it didn't free me because I could only go so far, before like I'd hit a wall and I'm like, okay, it's not safe to go past this. Like I let my box get like a little bit bigger, but I was good there and this just blew everything wide open and I question deeper than I'd ever questioned before. Like I asked the kind of big, hairy, scary questions that it's like, I didn't know what answers I was going to get, but I wasn't going to, the pastor anymore or the church anymore or the Bible anymore. Like I was just going to God, like internal in my spirit, a quiet conversation within myself. It wasn't quiet within me, but it was quiet externally. I was just working on things within me and asking God to show me the answers, to show himself to me. And I mean, my eyes were opened and expanded beyond what I can even, beyond what I could conceive. And it took that kind of catalyst to really, it was like an initiation into a life greater than I could have asked for or imagined. And books came my way. I've heard lots of people on your show like talk about, this book and that book and this, and that's how it was for me too. I mean, there were answers that I felt like I received within my spirit, but they were hard for me to trust because I had so much of the programming and the conditioning in me still. That, said I couldn't trust that and I didn't know what to, so it was very scary for me to lean on like what I felt within me. So still, outsourcing a lot at the time. But it was helping it was helping me get in touch with the voice inside of me, just slowly over time in a way that like felt safe and that I could manage. But yeah, there were people that came into my life. There were books that came into my life. There were experiences that came into my life that just continue to show me there is a different way. There is a better way. There's a truer way. And that hasn't stopped.
Yeah, that's so interesting because yeah, in some ways, and I can really relate to what you're saying because I've had the same experience, books and people and experiences that just kind of, like you said, like the box just gets blown apart. It
Mhm.
just disintegrates over time, and you start to have these internal experiences that then these external things come along and they confirm
Yeah.
what's been happening internally, and it's almost like spirit is orchestrating this dance for
Yeah.
you to begin to trust yourself and trust what you're receiving. Yeah.
Yes.
Can you
Yeah.
share with us just a few maybe concepts or ideas or even experiences that you had that confirmed what you were, maybe what you were feeling internally and how that was being confirmed?
Yeah. Um, so, around the time of hearing from my friend, and this was about 30 days after Jamie's death, I think it was maybe that far in, maybe a few weeks later, and I was like taking the medication every day. I was drinking from a flask every day, and I was going to bed at night, and I could feel like my muscles twitching, and I could just feel like destruction. Like I could feel I had an image in my mind that was very clear. That was like a fork in the road, and this way led to death, and this way led to life. And like I was at that fork, and I needed to
Mm.
choose. And I knew that if I kept going down the path that I was going, like it wasn't going to be good for me. It wasn't going to be good for my family, and that there was another way, and that I needed to choose that way if I wanted to live. And I really credit my son to saving my life because as much as I love my husband and as much as I love my mom, my son I had responsibility, you
Yeah, he
know?
depended on you. I
Yes.
get that a lot. I understand that because I've had those experiences in my own life where, I had small children and
Yes.
uh, tough things happen, but as a mom you still have to get up in the morning and you take care of your kids and you feed them, and you feel this like need to create this beautiful life for them.
Yes.
So yeah, I can
And I
appreciate.
mean, I mean that whole first year of his life, like I was as conscious as I could possibly be. Like, we had gone through months of trying to breastfeed before I just couldn't anymore. But like, I didn't give up after a week of it being hard. I went months of trying. And when that didn't work out, I ended up homemaking his formula every day so that like I could feel good about what was going into his body and making him organic foods and pureeing them. And so like I had so much love and so much care within motherhood that, like you could hear like, oh, I'm drinking from a flask every day and all these medications. That was like not how the prior year was. Okay. That was what was happening during that window of Jamie dying and me losing my footing.
Right.
Um,
You were numbing because the pain was just so great. Yeah.
it was just too much. And it felt like everything came up because I hadn't really processed my dad's death. And that was something
Mhm.
Jamie was always upset with me. Over was that she would try to connect with me and I just couldn't. I just couldn't go there. It was too heavy for me. I mean, we're all very close in my family. So like I'm very close with my mom. I was very close with my dad, even though we lived in different states. Like I was a daddy's girl through and through. We talked on the phone every single day. He knew all of the classes that I had in college and he knew what times they were so that he wanted to be able to text me like right after math and be like, "Hey, honey, how was math class?" And so we were very, very connected, and I just could not handle his passing. And so after Jamie died, I was like, I have to deal with it all now. Like everything's coming up. I can't do what I did with Daddy. I can't just go numb again. So like I just have to feel it all now. And so it was overwhelming. overwhelming. And I have so much compassion for myself for where I was at. Like, I don't look back like, oh, how could you do that? You had a son. I am just like, oh my gosh, girl. Like, I'm just glad you made it out alive, you know?
Well, and can I just say something too about that? Because I remember after my kids died and I had these two boys that were teenagers that were still at home. And I felt so badly that I was in this deep depression while these boys are in their, what we might consider one of the most challenging times of life in teenage years. And I remember Spirit saying to me, they chose this too.
Oh my gosh. That just,
And it gave me so much a higher understanding that this wasn't just my experience, it was my family's experience. It was their friends' experience. And just like your your boys knew before they came into into this life that this is what they were signing up for. And they came, and I just feel so much, they have so much compassion for you and your experience that they came to be part of your awakening and to be part of your journey because they love you so much. And I just wanted to add that because I think it's so hard as a parent to see where we might be not being 100%, but guess what? It is part of the experience for our kids too.
yes, I believe that with everything in me. That is not something I would have believed, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. I don't know, but I have said the same thing to mothers in my own life who have gone through
Wow.
very, very hard experiences um, that they feel very guilty about not being able to be there for their children in a window of time. Mothers who like, are conscious like I am and just so deeply like invested that they're just guilt-ridden about everything that, they like did not provide perfectly for their kids. And that what you just said like just feels like such confirmation in my heart because I don't think anybody's ever told me that before, but I know that. I mean, I have read obviously this in books and my mind is opened now and my awareness is open to, knowing that like we did choose to come here. And so it's like spirit has just whispered that to me, that like they chose you. They knew what they were coming into this life for too. And that always helps me forgive, myself for my shortcomings because you want to be, a perfect mom. Like I want to, unscathed, from any traumas and anything. And it's like, oh my goodness, like they came here to grow and learn too. Like I have to let go of that. But
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
so comforting. I love that you brought that up because I don't think that people think about that a lot, even people who know that like we came here. I don't know, sometimes, especially in motherhood, like you forget that that's true for your own children too. And so there's so much guilt that we face, and that is so comforting to for people to hear. So thank you for confirming that and sharing
Yeah.
that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it was around this time that I had that image in my mind of this fork in the road, and I was getting my hair done one day shortly after this, and I was in a Barnes and Noble. I like to say I was walking around in a medically induced haze when I found the book. And it was a book by Dr. Kelly Brogan, who's a holistic psychiatrist, called A Mind of Your Own. And there's like an exploding pill on the cover, and it was about healing depression. And so
Mm.
I buy this book because I have to buy this book because something inside of me needs to buy this book and it's known. And so I get it and I start reading it. And mind you, like I'm malleable, right? At this time, like I'm open, I'm able to hear something different than I had always heard. So I was like ready. And you had mentioned that too, like books and people and experiences will come, at you in your field, like as you grow and evolve and as when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? And
Yeah.
so this was one of my teachers that appeared, and she is explaining that the, serotonin theory of depression is not true. And I was taken aback, and I mean, I was still like there was resistance because I had been on medication on SSRI since I was 16 years old, so like almost a decade. Um, and I circle this page in the book and I write in there, that is a huge claim to make, exclamation. You know, I'm like, how dare she? But also, really tell me more. So, I get through this book and she has like a healing diet, that she prescribes to her patients that she shares about and some detoxing tools. And I go all in and I end up getting off of every single medication, detoxing from all medications, except for my SSRI that took like maybe 6 months or more to really taper off of that. But eventually I tapered off of that too. Um,
And just for again, these interviews are for entertainment purposes, and we're not suggesting that if you're on medication that get off of them, but that if you choose that route, you you do that with a doctor that can assist you in that. So yeah, I
and
just
yeah,
want
I
to,
mean, it can be very dangerous to just like
yeah,
stop medication. And I mean,
for
I had
sure.
gone through a program that she has too. So like I was very well informed about what
Hmm.
I was doing. And I did not just like cold turkey stop anything at all. And I had put the supportive measures in place that needed to be there
That's
to
awesome.
be able to get off. So this wasn't like, I had like a toenail in safety and everything else was just like in chaos. And I'm like, well, I'm just gonna cut my band-aids off. Like I was anchoring myself more and more into safety through knowledge, through
That's
a
wonderful.
different paradigm on healing and mental health and like where illness and mental illness really comes from. It wasn't just like this random firing of chemicals in my brain. Now, if there's an association with like the brain chemical imbalance, it's a symptom. Like it's just a symptom um, of whatever experiences you've had in your life that have like it all makes sense. And that's really
Yeah.
what I teach now in my work is that you make sense. Like whether you have bipolar disorder or like chronic fatigue syndrome, like you make sense. Your body is highly intelligent. It responds to your experiences of life. It holds on to what it has not been released for our safety. And so it's like my passion to really teach this now, but I was just in my
That.
learning phase at the time, and I was open to new information. And so that was a big piece. Um,
I love the miracle of this. I just want to highlight the miracle of this. You had this experience where you saw you saw these alternative timelines. You saw that the path that you were on was destructive and that there was another path available to you. And then you end up with this book that changes your paradigm, changes your and it puts you on the alternative path of healing, and you're finding answers to, because it's so common for people to feel like they're on a destructive path but not feel like there's any answers for it. And what a miracle for you to like open your heart and your mind to possibility, and you felt this soul calling to buy this book, to read this book, to engage with it, to experiment with these ideas. And this has led you on a path of providing support and help for other people who are on a similar path, who realize they want something different, they want something better, they want more happiness, more engagement, more consciousness in their own life. So I just want to just really highlight that right now, and just highlight the beauty of your experience and the beauty of you listening to your soul in that moment.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that really feels like it comes full circle with what I was sharing in the beginning, that like I got what I asked for on the healing end of things, to be able to have gone through something, many things, very traumatizing, and very big, and still like be able to come through that. And it was a slow process. There was, even after everything that happened with hearing from Jamie, and I've had so many experiences in the couple of years after that, I still was in a place where I was dreading like the rest of my life. It was like I was around 25 years old, and I'm like, I potentially have 75% more or more of my life to live. And that was heavy in my body. That was
Mhm.
terrifying and sad and scary, because I was I was coming up out of, the darkness that I had been in for so, so long, but I wasn't quite there yet. It was still, there was still so much to like undo. It's not like there was I believe that like we all are whole already, like within ourselves, like our spirit is really truly like unscathed by anything that we have been through in life. Um, but I wasn't connected with that yet, and I was still in my pain very, very deeply, even though it had expanded. And like, my mom would ask, how are you doing this? Like, how are you okay? Like, how are you living? How are you surviving? And I'm like, well, first of all, I have a child, so I feel like I have to. Um, but also like my grief and my pain didn't feel like, and I've heard other people say this, which is just like, oh, of course, right? But like my grief didn't feel like it was getting smaller. It felt like I was getting bigger, and I
Mm,
was expanding like enough to hold that. And it's just increased, over the
yeah.
years.
Well, and you know what's coming to my mind right now, and I don't know that I've ever thought about it this way before, but it's almost like we have these experiences and we experience grief or we experience pain or we experience sadness or we experience depression. It's almost like a wardrobe that we wear. And then
Yeah.
we decide that we're going to change our wardrobe and we're going to try on some different things. And that's what it feels like. Like you were wearing that wardrobe of mental illness, of sadness, of grief, and you decided to try on a different wardrobe. Does that make any sense at all?
So much sense. And it's funny because I speak now like in the language of parts, like we have this part of us that is depressed, or this part of us that is grieving, or, but that's not the whole of us. Like I wasn't just grieving 24/7. Like I would have moments of, connecting to something deeper, expanding more. And, the way I see life now is that like our soul comes here in these bodies and has experiences, and like picks up and, on all of this information as we grow and as we evolve. And our bodies just adapt to like what we're experiencing. And the density of this plane that we're in is very different from, I believe, what our true home is, in the spirit realm. And we feel that. And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with us. I think we make complete sense no matter where we're at on the spectrum of, ill health, in physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, to, the most abundant life and experience of health, and that we could possibly imagine. There's nothing wrong with any of us. I see it now more as being blended, with these different parts of ourself, which are just carrying the stories and the memories and the pain of our past. And so for a long time, I would try to shift out of those parts, and like almost like I'm cutting my old wardrobe off and I'm jumping into something else. And that was okay for a little while, and I was able to expand a lot, but I'm in a place now where like I actually turn towards those parts of me, and I am curious about them, and I have compassion for them, and it's because I'm not afraid of my mind and my body and my experiences anymore. I've learned something new, and I'm able to meet these places within me with like an immense love and understanding, and it has been alchemical and part of, this journey of just awakening to the magnificence and the power and the beauty of who we really are.
Wow, yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I love that. And I think you said something earlier that I want to emphasize and what I think I heard you say was there's a part of us that is always whole, that is always like that soul part, that spirit part of us is always whole, and we're just experiencing this from this earth perspective, but that spirit part of us, that soul part of us is just always complete. And
Yeah.
it's almost another thing that what you're saying reminds me of is this idea, which is really hard for us to wrap our heads around, that everything is happening at the same time. And I have felt a lot like as I as I re-experience or as I heal from past experiences, it's almost like it changes that experience. I am still having greater understanding of what happened when my kids died back in
Mhm.
2007. I'm still experiencing it at higher and higher levels, and it's as if it changes that event.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to express that other than to just say that that's been my experience. It's as if that experience of their passing changes with every change in me.
Wow. Changes. I'm just so curious, like what way does it change for you?
Well, in recent, even within the last year, I've had in meditation, in even in hypnosis
Hmm.
sessions, I've had greater understanding of what happened when they passed, of the soul, greater understanding of the soul plan, um, greater understanding of how all these pieces fit together. And it's several years ago, I realized that at the time that they passed, when they passed from this realm to the next realm, everything I needed in order to heal was present in
Yeah.
that moment.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And it was all there. And I didn't recognize that until several years later when I did experience healing, that I could look back and go, all of that was available to me right there in that moment.
Yeah.
But from this perspective, like in the spirit realm, it's things happen immediately.
Yes.
We're living in this realm of love and peace and joy and complete wholeness and awareness of our complete wholeness. But here we're more disconnected from that realm of, peace, love, and complete wholeness. And we experience things in a linear fashion, which doesn't exist on the spirit plane.
Yeah. Right.
And anyway, I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but it's just your story is just opening up so much recognition in me of my own experiences and recognition, recognizing your healing process and how beautiful it is, and how when you share your experiences, and you mentioned before we hit record that that you had you talked to Jamie and you were like, help me to share this story in a way, and I have just felt her here
Mhm.
the entire time. And as you share your story, you are opening up healing for other people, and they are feeling the effects of that. They are feeling that interconnectedness that you have with your sister in spirit. Like you are still one, you are still here making a difference for other people through Jamie's life is healing people. She is a bold, beautiful soul who is very present in this moment,
I feel
as
that.
you are.
Thank you. And it just takes me back to before any experiences were had after her passing. And my mentor called me and I ignored it. And my husband was like, "Why didn't you answer the phone?" And I was like, "What is she gonna say? Like, what is she gonna say?" Like, there's just, there's nothing there. There's nothing that can be said. There's nothing that can be done, not even by her. And he looked so distraught, like, and he asked me, like, please call her back. Like, he was like, oh my God, like, somebody's got to talk to her. And I called her back for his sake because I love her so deeply, but I just thought, like, she can't touch this. Like, this is just pure devastation and nothing else. Like, she can't bring Jamie back. So there's nothing that can be done here. And I called her back, to appease my husband, and a conversation changed my life. And she she had had a session with Jamie before she passed, one or two, and it was a beautiful session. And she said that in that moment, she like never knows where her clients' notes are. And she had flipped through one of the pages in her book, and there's Jamie's notes right there. Like, and she's, has lots of clients. And so to just like have it in this notebook, in this page, like that she flipped to is just wild. And so she was able to like, see some stuff they talked about. And she just told me things that I think were told to her. She's also very intuitive.
Hmm.
Um, and, I didn't even know this, like meeting her. I wasn't like seeking out an intuitive mentor. It just, again, it's like it's spirit. It's you bring together who is in resonance, who is needed, who is meant to be on your path. And she told me, this is not the end of you and Jamie. Like, this is the beginning of a new kind of relationship between you two. And, that Jamie is going to help you heal from the other side, and then she is going to help, you heal, not heal other people, but like healing will be brought to other people, like through you and like because of her. And you need to hear this in order for you to heal, like at a core level. She told me all these things. I'm just fervently writing down, probably in my phone, just like typing away everything she's saying because I'm just like, phew, phew, just feeling all of it. Um, and I had read a book years later now about, planning your life before you're born. And there was this wonderful, amazing story about this multi-dimensional, like marriage relationship where the husband had died and continued to help, like the mother, raise their child from the other side. And I was like, I want that. I want multi-dimensional sisterhood. And I have prayed that to Jamie for years now. Like, please help me help others. Like, let's do this together. So much has been birthed through that. I have like a heart mission that I am working on now called Sister Well that I made a year after Jamie had passed
Wow.
to just chronicle my grief journey. And my whole tagline was like, learning through the struggles, mining for the gems, and sharing what heals. And so I did that for a while, and I had a vision for it to like reclaim sisterhood within women and then within mothers. Um, and I'm expanding that now. Like it's time recently that like this has been brought up again because I kind of like put it on hold for a long time. Obviously, still continued in my connection and like my relationship, my dialogue and stuff. And there's been so much that has happened. Um, but I'd love to share one specific thing. So this is
Love
when
that.
I had
Yeah.
asked if I could read something.
Yes.
So let me open this because this is just such a cool, cool experience that happened. I have to just get to it real quick. But yeah, here it is. So this was, hmm. this was on Jamie's birthday. And I, yes, it was on her birthday. And I wrote a letter to my mom because a whole experience had just happened. And I bought my mom a birthday gift, and it was from Jamie. And I didn't expect any of that to happen, but it like all happened, I think a couple days prior. And so this is a letter that I wrote my mom, and then I'll explain it a little bit. I
Okay.
said, Mom, this is from Jamie. What can I say? I'm just the messenger. I remember speaking to a medium a while back, and of course, Stacy, my mentor, had, what is it called? Like forecasted this or whatever, right? And her saying that Jamie was going to speak through me to help my mom and other people heal, something like that. Well, all last week I'd been seeing marketing material for the Humble Hair, which is like Goodwill kind of store. Said their magazine was in a place that I noticed it 3 to 4 times within a few days, all at different locations. And I thought that was strange. I had never like been there or really known anything about it. I wondered if I was supposed to go there or something. So this morning, so it must have been on her birthday, I said I prayed and said I wanted to feel connected to God and Jamie so that her light could come through me and bless others. That was my intention for the morning. Then the memory of how often I'd seen the humble hair material came into my mind later on, and I told Stephen, I feel like we should go to the humble hair today. So we went, and I wondered why the heck I was there. I wondered if there was a really pretty dress or something fun that Jamie was going to surprise me with. As soon as we had pulled up, my eyes immediately were drawn to a pillowcase I could see in the front window that had the word love on it. I eventually gravitated over there and I saw the full saying. I knew immediately, oh, this is why I'm supposed to be here. I grabbed the pillowcase and ran into the dressing room because I started to cry with awe. I could see and feel it so clearly. Clarity was also part of my intention that morning. She led me here to buy this pillow for you from her. I know that in my soul. I was praying to her, oh my gosh, James, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And I walked out, turned my head to the left, and immediately saw the word God spelled out on a sign. It was the first thing I saw coming back into the store. So happy birthing day to you, Mama, from Jamie, who is obviously still loving that you're her mom and closer to us than we even understand. And I have the pillow right
Wow.
here, and it says, I love that you're my mom.
Uh,
And these were the words that she wrote her, that Jamie wrote to my mom. And my mom had it displayed after she passed on her fridge for like years. And she wrote, I love that you are my mom. Not like, I love you, mom, mom, I love you. I love that you are my mom. Same exact words, which I thought was the coolest miracle gifting in and of itself. But of course, my mom was like, oh, and I go to find out she had been praying to Jamie for like a week, asking her, was I a good mom? Was I a good mom?
oh,
And like
oh,
heartbroken, like feeling like, was I good to you? Did you like, was I enough for you? And I think she had journaled it and she had been asking and asking and asking. And she found, and then she had found what she had written, and there was another letter too. And so that even led her to the letter that she remembered. Because we're like, where is that phrase? I love that you're my mom. Where is it? It was on her fridge for forever. It wasn't there. So we're digging through all our stuff. We find a letter that I love that you're my mom was on. And it was literally a letter to my mom telling her how good of a mom she was and basically answering all the questions she had been asking her about how she was as a mom.
oh, wow. I love so much that you shared that story. And I just feel like, you talked about your mentor calling and feeling like, well, what can she say? And then you have this experience where she's telling you all this. This is what I'm talking about. Like you received so much healing, but that healing in that moment of that mentor telling you that you were going to be doing this work with your sister, it takes time to integrate all of that and to actually, but the healing was there and available to you. And you have this beautiful moment, this all the things that just the synchronicities, the feeling like you needed to go to that store, finding that pillow with the exact phrase that prompts your mom to find the letter that shares the things that she's asking for. I just want to say, wow, I love this so much. I'm so grateful to you for sharing your story. And I know you mentioned that this is one of the first times that you've really shared your story, and how beautiful your story is and how magnificent. We're definitely going to need to have you on again to share more of your story. But um, thank you. Thank you so much. And I do want to ask a couple of questions that I always ask all my guests. And one is, what does your spiritual life look like now? What are some of the maybe the daily or weekly practices that you do to help you stay spiritually connected? And then also share with us how people can connect with you.
Okay, yeah. Well, I practice the art of surrender very often. I just in the recent few years have like really come into contact with who I am in an even deeper way than I ever have. And looking over my life, I can see that like I've always had this impulse to just know like who we really are and that we're more than meets the eye. Like I said, I had this like affinity for heaven and spiritual experiences and stuff when I was, within Christianity. Um, which, a lot of people will walk away from a lot of the trauma that's associated with that religion and just cut it all off. I still feel incredibly close to God, Jesus, Mother Mary. I just have a very different understanding and relationship, a freer relationship, a deeper understanding, and I believe a much truer understanding, than I ever have. So, in my work and in my personal life and in my work because it's within my personal life, just a natural transference. I am so clear on who I am in spirit. And so my practice essentially is to anchor into that part of me or non-part of me because it is the whole, um, every day to anchor into that always. And I don't feel anymore like I have to heal everything that's obscuring it in order to connect with it. Because, like you said before, that I resonated with so much, what you needed, it was all available to you then. Like it was all there, but we can't always see it. And it's because, we have old stories, paradigms, parts, this biology that our spirit is being housed in that's like running the show, so to speak. And so healing is not so much about, um, trying to like manifest a higher self or like make ourselves better. It's really about like just removing what's obscuring the presence to like who we really are. And so of course, by removing, now I'm just being with like all those old stories and those old ways, and knowing that at any moment, like I can step into the full power of who I am by remembering my true nature, and nothing else has to change. Like I don't have to stop being like really sad about something or whatever. I can just remember who I am, and then it just shifts my experience with anything that I feel inside of me. So I don't feel like, now in order to manifest my dream life, I have to just be high vibe all the time and, like on a constant, just like elevated frequency and top vibration. Like I'm just like, oh, like that wholeness that's within me is here always. It never changes. I am already free, which is the name of my coaching. I'm already whole. I already have access to everything that I need. It's just a remembrance. The remembrance is the shift. The remembrance is the medicine. The remembrance is the alchemy. And then I just turn towards those parts of me that feel any differently than that and just love them and have so much compassion for them. And it has completely reoriented my experience of life. And I want to be here now. I'm happy to be here. I'm grateful to be here. I'm excited. I'm like, oh, yay, I still have 75% or more of my life left to live. And like, I'm so grateful that like woken up from the nightmare that I was in. You know, it was more than a spiritual awakening. It was awakening from a nightmare. And now I get to live within this, you know, dream of Earth. Not to say that it's like always a dream, but it's just not the most real compared to like our home. It's an experience and it's a short experience that we're having. I mean, a very short experience. And so I get to be in this dream like place, this short experience, this moment that we're here in a completely different way and with so much more possibility than I ever had just because I'm aware of it, not because I didn't have access to it then. So I remember every day. That is what I do. I just remember who I am. And yeah, and I think you asked how to find me or
Mhm. Yes.
okay. So I have a website, iamalreadyfree.com, and that is where I have information about my coaching, and I have like a freebie on there, a guided audio experience, because I'm really, really passionate about helping to make this information accessible to everybody. And so, you know, I have all different tiers as far as pricing on like how to work with me. But my like heart is that I want people to be able to work with me from a place of abundance and not feeling like, oh my gosh, she has the answers. And unless I have enough money, like I can't heal. I'm like, no, no, like you already have the medicine in you. So like I'm not going to be the gatekeeper to your, you know, awareness of that. So I teach people just like that, essentially how to self-heal mind and body, even in my free stuff, and then, you know, just grow from there.
Beautiful. I have loved this conversation so much. Thank you so much. Before we hit record, I thought this is going to be beautiful, and it's been wonderful and exceeded my expectations. So thank you so much for being here today. And like I said, we'll have another conversation another day. I want to thank everybody for sticking with us
Yeah.
for this longer form interview. But what a beautiful experience to get to know you, get to know your heart. So thank you.
Thank you, Julie. This was so gorgeous and I'm so grateful. So, yeah, thank you so much.